All right. So during the zombie apocalypse, what would be scarier? Being trapped in a mall or being trapped and stuck with people that you can't stand?
I'm probably going to say zombie apocalypse. I mean, not realistically, because your life is in danger. But yeah, like I have a very close-knit group of friends. Like if you're in my group, it's a pretty tight-knit squad. I've got friends that go back even 30 years. But as a result, I don't hang out with people that I don't care for. So I'm going to go with being trapped in a mall during a zombie apocalypse because I feel like I would know what to do at this point. So I've seen
Okay.
enough zombie, movies. I've read the Zombie Survival Handbook by Max Brooks.
Max Brooks, yes,
Yep.
yes.
So,
Yes, we always, like, if we're zombie fans, we feel like, okay, we've got the books, we've seen all the movies, we are ready for whatever comes to us.
Mm-hmm.
Hello to everybody out there. It is I, the Terrorific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy. Welcome to Retro Horror School Talks, where I drag various people who love horror, kicking and screaming, onto here to talk about it, about retro horror and retro horror related topics. And with me, I have Thomas Fowler, who is an award-winning author, screenwriter, and filmmaker. So he is a man of many talents. So welcome. It is so great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandy. This is going to be a really fun topic. I've loved zombie films from a pretty young age, like even when I was a teenager. So it's been a very large part of my horror discovery when I started getting into like more horror stuff. We'll talk about that later, but I appreciate it. It's going to be a blast. So.
Yeah, it definitely is. Before we dive into the movie that we're going to be talking about, that, spoiler alert, it's about zombies. But tell everybody out there who may not know you, who you are, what you do, especially when it comes to horror stuff.
Yeah. So, I like you said, I'm a guy who wears a lot of hats. I started out writing plays in high school and college, and then that transitioned to video production. So I started doing movies. And then when that went under, I started writing books and kind of settled into life with my wife and kids. And then the pandemic put that one under, so because my publisher went under. So then I kind of got the opportunity with one of my author friends to be the assistant director on his film because he knew that I paid the bills by doing advertising and marketing. So I've been working in video production for advertising for a decade now. And it's great because it gives me helps me pay the bills and give myself a base of support so that way I could pursue my creative interests and passions. And going back on set for that short film that was called Demon for Hire was just such a blast. So it got me kind of like reignited. So I started writing scripts again, and we made Slasher Sessions, which is a horror comedy about slashers in therapy. So just imagine if all the slashers you've seen in movies had to sit around and talk about their feelings. We made a short that's about 20 minutes, and it's sort of our proof of concept. So we have the feature. We're trying to get that made into a feature film. We've gotten some commitment to financing, but we don't have the full funds yet, so we're getting there. And, in the meantime, I just love writing. A lot of it's very monster-based. Not all zombies, but I definitely do have a lot of love for monsters, if you can't tell from, the plethora of Godzillas and kaiju behind me.
So, no, I absolutely couldn't tell that you loved anything to do with monsters and horror.
Yeah.
Not at all. Though
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that you like zombies, like considering just like everything that you just said, because zombies are a very specific type of creature, one that I have always loved as well. And the movie that you picked, I just got really excited that you picked it. So we're going to dive into this. Dawn of the Dead. So we're not talking the original Romero one, which came out in 1978. We are talking about the remake, which came out in 2004. And there are people that may be surprised to know this, that Zack Snyder Yes, we're talking that Zack Snyder, the one who directed 300, the first iteration of like the DCEU movies. Yes, that Snyder. And it was also written by James Gunn, who is another. He's also now involved in DC. So we got this remake that takes just Romero's original movie. It dials it up to 11. Everything is gorier. Everything is sharper. Everything is just fast, 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 fast. Let's go to the very first time you heard about this remake and the very first time that you watched it. Were you a little bit skeptical that a remake of Dawn of the Dead was being made? What was your approach to it when you first heard of it?
I was excited because the first time I saw it was actually in college, and I saw it with a bunch of my improv buddies because I was in an improv troupe for almost 4 years, and we all went together. And I was fine going in because I saw the original when I was in high school, because I saw Night of the Living Dead like on TV because they aired all during Halloween, and it kind of like that sort of opened me up on the floodgates of Zombieville there, and but because even from the marketing and the upfronts, I could tell it was so tonally different. I was fine when we saw it, and it was also just a blast. One of my poor friends, Jamie, her boyfriend at the time, one of her biggest fears was that opening sequence when her boyfriend, partner, husband, gets bit by a little girl and turns on her. That was like one of her biggest fears. So then, of course, because we're in improv, we improvised the whole scene, and her then boyfriend went around the corner and came out and scared the everything hell out of her and stuff. So, so we were all just hanging out and having fun. And I think that's kind of what the tone of that movie is compared to the original. And because it's so vastly different, they're almost two different experiences for me. So that's mine. What about you?
Well, I had not seen the original at all. So actually I saw the remake before I ever ended up seeing the original. And I didn't get to see it in theaters. I was working at a video rental store at a time. And I loved everything to do with zombies because we had 28 Days Later that came out in 2002. And I was absolutely just then obsessed with anything zombie. So when I saw this on the shelves, like at the video store where I worked, it's just like, I'm getting it and I'm bringing it home and I'm going to watch it. And it was absolutely, it blew my mind. It really did.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Because like I said, there's that, especially just that opening sequence, just from the get-go, it kind of builds you up, makes you believe everything's fine, and then boom, chaos, boom, child zombie, boom, world falling apart and crumbling around you.
Yeah, which when you compare it to the, 78 version, it's sort of jumps in mid, the zombie apocalypse where the news station is starting to shut down. They're trying to get their last little broadcast out before it goes. And then it goes into chaos, but it's nowhere near the pace or the intensity because most of it's just from the perspective of the hero where she's sitting there like even just kind of like shocked about the zombie apocalypse as it's going. But then, 04, they hit 90 and didn't stop in that opening. So literally, because you see cars veering into gas stations and explosions. So
yeah, explosions and people being torn apart on a bus and just what was it? Guy had that one zombie like her husband that after he was turned just like was chasing her in the car. That he saw that person in the yard just did a U-turn and.
Yep, and then another one of her neighbors was like pointing a gun at her, saying "Stay away" because he didn't understand what was going on. Then an ambulance comes by and just T-bones him, basically.
Yeah, it's like, look, I don't even understand what's going on. Why are you pointing a gun at me?
Yeah. But that's one thing that I love about that opening too, though, is that like it's Anna's perspective from the get-go with the opening, and so we're kind of just as befuddled as she is, where everything just kind of hits her like a complete train wreck, where she's trying to figure out even what's going on. So it's a really cool move to kind of have it hit you that way, especially with her husband turning on her and that acceleration of stakes happening on almost a flip of a switch.
Yeah, we've mentioned the tone of these two movies and how they are just so vastly different, and even the messages behind are so vastly different. We have Romero's Dawn of the Dead, which he straight out tells you, look, this is about consumerism. This is a direct critique on consumerism. I'm not going to try and hide it. This is how it is. But that still doesn't mean that Snyder's version still has nothing to say. It really is a character study in how people how people deal with fear and survival and everything falling apart around them. Do you think that the way the messages are like delivered, like from in the 78 one and the 2004 one, do you think that changes how we maybe personally connect with each film and its underlying messages?
I think a little bit, just because Dawn of the Dead is a little bit more contemplative, about like consumerism and things like that. And one thing I noticed, because the remake is definitely geared more towards just entertainment. There's still some cool themes, because the one thing I did notice when I rewatched the remake is that there is this like sense of like change, adaptability, and community, in the sense that like we get a sense very early on that some people are going to be very stuck in their ways, and it's kind of interesting because the ones who typically stay stuck are the ones who get the most like horrific deaths. Mainly thinking of like Brett, the third security guard guy. Steve. He gets pretty brutal death, and he also gets what he actually predicted almost for his character. And things like that. Whereas like characters like CJ gets a really great redemptive arc. So his death is a little bit more heroic. There's a couple of like small exceptions, like the poor old lady who walks in on the baby, Norma, and Andy.
Yes.
Those both, hit, and they both kind of get like brutal deaths. But the thing is, so their deaths will also serve a different purpose, in the sense that like it's more like stressing how like insane Andre has gone, and with Andy how like they were kind of in the final stretch of things and it was going bad and all that too. So, whereas, the first three movies in Romero's Living Dead series all had something very much to say about like society as a whole. Whereas I think this one was just more, let's have some fun and we'll do some character arcs and things like that. So, but it doesn't change. It's just they're different experiences to me. It's almost kind of like whether I feel like getting a cheeseburger or a nice, like seafood plate that's been well prepared,
It's like both are very filling and fulfilling, and they leave you satisfied.
Exactly. You maybe can't go get the cheeseburger all the time, but every now and then you just got to go through the drive-through, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not in the mood to like really like sit down or like cook a bunch of anything or just like get a big meal. You just
exactly
get that quick hit and you are satisfied.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. We got to talk a little bit about the zombies, specifically in this movie. So the zombies in this version of Dawn of the Dead, they run. They're just very fast-paced zombies. And in any of Romero's movies, the zombies are always very kind of slow, shuffling. They're easily dispatched whenever they're on their own, but it's in greater numbers that they're dangerous. How do you think that the idea of fast zombies, how do you think that changes the vibe of them compared to like say Romero's slow shuffling undead? Does it kind of lose that sense of dread or creepiness, or what do you think?
In a little bit, in a way, but also because the tones are, like I've said this already, but like the tones are so vastly different. I feel like the pace of the zombies matches the pace of the movie. I also think that was to kind of refresh the genre, because 28 Days Later obviously had the fast rage virus people, because they technically aren't zombies, I think is what they've said. They're just infected with the rage virus and exhibit a lot of zombie-like behavior. But it was kind of reflective of the time in the sense that like, social media apps were here, high-speed internet, things were getting faster, audience expectations were there. And the zombie like genre itself was in a pretty big lull up until that point. And that kind of kicked off like the zombie like wave that we saw come in. And so I think it was just adapting to the audience. I think as long as it makes sense for the world and the pacing that they're trying to build, I'm okay with it. I'm not one of those. It has to be old school. Has to be has to be slow. If it fits the movie, I'm okay. Like I think that's why with 28 Days Later and this Dawn of the Dead and things, it makes sense. Because it's more of the pace and the energy needed for the movie. What about you? I mean, are you like, unless they're crawling, they aren't zombies or what?
I'm on the opposite side of the 28 Days Later thing. I have always thought that they were zombies, just a different breed and
Okay.
a different kind. And
Yeah.
I've had people yell at me and be like, "No, they're not." It's just like, calm down.
Yeah.
It's just like my thoughts on it. But basically, yeah, it changes your entire personality, and there's really just like no cure for it. You're just on like 100% like speed until your body gives out, and then you die. But fast zombies have never really bothered me like all too much. It's just like they're dangerous, just a different kind of danger. They're dangerous both by themselves, and they're dangerous like in groups as well, even though they're more kind of, whenever they were gathered in front of the mall, I remember they were more just kind of slow and kind of like reminiscent of the Romero zombies. I think they turn on whenever they see people.
Yeah, once they're activated, once they know they've got a live kill. So,
so once they're activated, what's the button? Once the button gets pressed.
Once they see some bait. So
and also, yeah, in this world, they don't really like, they ignore animals. I know that much. Like some zombie lore, like you see like a whole bunch of zombie animals, and this one's just like the dog doesn't die. That's my thoughts on it. Just like the dog does not die and survives, and it's great because I get sick of seeing dogs die in horror movies. I hate it.
Yeah, well, and the movie itself also kind of plays with the lore of zombie rules, because there's a lot of other zombie movies, like in Romero's movies too, where it isn't just the bite that turns you. If you just die, then you just come up. And that's the whole Walking Dead premise too, is that like, if you die, you just come back. It doesn't matter whether you're bit, turned. Whereas this one, you have to be bitten, you have to get turned in order to become a zombie. And they also aren't interested in other animals, which is not the case. You see, like even in like the original Night of the Living Dead, you see the one like grabbing worms off the tree and stuff too. I also appreciated that it was really specific about its rules, because sometimes you watch zombie movies and I was like, wait, the rules just changed. I think you did that just because you wanted that to happen for the reason of the plot, as opposed to having one of your rules or something like that. I appreciated that they figured out some specifics, including like how they had like the twitchers, where if like the brain's like partially damaged, they kind of do the guy in the fountain. You see him kind of squirming around, almost like the computer mainframe is just stalling out and needs a hard reboot. So
I love the different types of like rules that they establish, but the one rule I know that's always common is just that you gotta shoot them in the head. Shoot them in the head. It's like TV says you gotta shoot them in the head. TV says a lot of things that aren't true.
But that has, I mean, even through like a lot of like the spoofs and stuff, like that always does seem to be like the one tried and true that almost always applies.
Except in Return of the Living Dead.
Yes, yeah. In that case, they're just that one also has such a different tone that I kind of like. It's a different experience for me, and I love the Return of the Living Dead movies, but again, just such a different experience that I'm all right with it.
And also in both of these movies, they're both Dawn of the Dead original and then the remake. The mall is very iconic. So in both versions, but because these movies are different experiences, you got the characters reacting with it differently. In Romero's version, the mall is a direct critique of consumerism and almost kind of a weird critique of consumerism. But in this version, it is more just almost like a trap, kind of like a place where they have gone and congregated and where almost they are waiting to die. I think even Kenneth like says that at one point. Basically, one of the worst things is like sitting here in this mall waiting to die. So what do you think that says about the shift in cultural anxieties, like say from the late 70s, like consumerism and materialism just being a form of status, then to the early 2000s where we had just like all this distrust of institutions and government.
Yeah, I mean, with the original, there was one thing I noticed is that like as soon as the characters started to almost consume too much at the mall, they themselves were typically like consumed, and that there's
Yeah.
no better example of that than the biker gang because they just want
Mm-hmm.
to take over the whole mall, and as soon as they do, I mean, there's that one guy who gets torn apart when he's like literally trying to get like a blood pressure check, you know.
Yeah,
Like, he was so
yeah.
distracted and like trying different things that he didn't notice the zombies coming up behind him. As soon as they came in to take everything from them, they themselves got taken over by the zombies. And this other one definitely has a lot bigger themes of like the distrust of things. And one very specific example I noticed in this one was where it's sort of that post 9/11, and this was only 3 years removed,
Yeah, yeah.
where the apocalypse is first happening. This is when CJ still got the people like locked in one of the stores, for security reasons because he doesn't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they're watching the TV, they're talking about what America's trying to do, and he goes like, "See, America always." Do we cuss on this channel? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Just
all right.
let it fly.
Okay, yeah. So he says like, "See, America always sorts this shit out," but then of course they don't, right?
No, no.
And it's the same thing where like initially they went to the mall thinking it would be a safe haven, but then as time progresses, they keep finding themselves getting picked off and like one here, two here, three here, and that's what leads to that monologue because I think they have like three bodies
Yeah.
laying down when Kenneth, is that his name?
Kenneth, yes, Kenneth.
Yeah, Kenneth kind of says like, I used to always think better than me, but now I don't believe that anymore. And it's because they started to see that like help isn't coming, and unless they do something, they're just going to get wheeled away. And going back to the mall point too, it's kind of interesting because there's two facets I can touch on there. I also know that Zack Snyder and the production team wanted to use real mall stores, so like Spencer's, Starbucks, but nobody wanted to because they were like, "Are you going to have our logo splattered in blood?" And you're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "No."
Yeah, kind of zombie movie.
Exactly. So like they couldn't get any sponsorship money for this movie at all. So they then had to like come up with brands and everything. So all the store signs you see, they had to make up. But that kind of also reflects that like 2000s, even up to today with like brands, how they have to be so protective of themselves, just because they think that their brand is some sort of sacred icon that can't be touched or harmed. But the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking about the malls and how the first one was 78, then there was 2004. I don't even know if a mall would be a good setting now because malls have kind of become irrelevant.
They're almost kind of becoming a relic.
Yeah, exactly. You almost think of it as like, a bygone era at this point. Because I was a teen when the malls were the cool place to go. I saw the first Jurassic Park in theaters, and then I went straight to the Walden Books and got the book, kind of thing. To date myself there, but I was thinking like, what if they actually did Dawn of the Dead again? I almost feel like a mall wouldn't work. It'd almost have to be like an Amazon warehouse or something. So,
that would be a horrible place to be trapped in.
I mean, some would argue it already is kind of a horrible place to be trapped in, but
like zombie apocalypse or no.
Yeah, we won't go too far into politics or this or any of that.
No.
Yeah. What about you though? I took a lot of time there. What about you in terms of the themes of the mall and consumerism and how that changed throughout the different movies and iterations?
Yeah, it's I thought that in the 78 one that it was ridiculous. They portrayed it as ridiculous, but to me that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
Almost saying just like if you over consume and just keep buying things for the sake of buying or not even really knowing why you're buying it, that it's just you're just ridiculous. That's the tone that I got from it. You're a ridiculous person if you behave this way.
Yeah.
And in the 2004 one, I feel it was very much very well placed in like just the time it came out. It was 3 years after 9/11. We were working through a lot of just that we don't trust anybody at all, and I felt the setting kind of forced all these different characters that had all these different values and all these different ideas to actually come together.
Mhm.
And for the most part, all of them had to grow to trust one another. Like you mentioned, there are those few outliers, the people that refuse to change, like
Mhm.
Steve, jerk. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. My
Yeah,
rambling thoughts. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Now, when it comes to a very important part of society are the structures that we depend on. So we could say malls, like we could say malls, like in this like aspect,
Yeah.
but also things, television and media, uh, government, law enforcement, military, healthcare, religious institutions, even because I know some of the characters, they first went to a church, then the church fell, then they went to like that fort, like
Mhm.
that army fort, and then it fell. So all these institutions are and structures are just crumbling all around.
Yep.
And do you think that this film in particular has anything to say about how much we as a society depend on those kinds of structures?
Yeah, I think so. Just because if you think about it, like a lot of us, like I'm CPR certified, I'm not gonna be able to do a whole lot else. I don't know how to give stitches, things like that. I don't know how to diagnose certain illnesses beyond like, oh, it's a cough and a fever or something like that, right?
Yeah,
We
you're
have
safe.
those, yeah, exactly. Like I have some skill, like I know to put pressure on a wound, but beyond that, I'm not going to be that helpful in a medical emergency. I only have base knowledge, and so we have those reliance on those who have that specialty and those who can provide that, and in order for society to function and there to be a good structure, there has to be certain like aspects of those pieces that are fulfilled and available to us when we need them. Because it's not going to happen all that often, but when it happens, we need them without any question mark around it. And so as a result, it kind of shows how quickly and easily it is for those structures to fall apart, which kind of goes back to the post 9/11 structure and the skepticism that they had, because there's that moment when Kenneth is trying to get to Fort Pastor. Like this is like opening before they even get to the mall, and they run into Michael and Andre and his wife, and he says, "Sir, you do not want to go that way."
It's like, no, it is bad. Do not go that way.
They said, "How do you know?" He's like, "Well, we just came from there back when there were 8 of us, and now there's only
Yeah,
when you see that there's only 3."
five,
Um,
five people just
yeah,
ended up
exactly.
right in
Yeah,
the dust.
but as a result, it kind of planted those seeds of like the systems that you think you should be relying on aren't available to us. Even so, because when the opening sequence happens and she tries to call 911, Anna's able to administer because she's a nurse. She could do temporary care, but she's also in her home. She's not in the establishment of the hospital. So
Yeah.
she tries calling 911. She gets the busy signal and she's just like, no, this can't be happening, not right now. And then just escalates very quickly from there. So,
Yeah, it's frightening to think of a situation to where it is all trust that we have placed in these institutions that society has told us that we are supposed to place trust in, are just it's gone. Like,
mhm.
not necessarily like the trust in this scenario, but just the fact that these institutions are crumbling, and then it just leaves you at the end with just like you're on your own, or you're with the
Mhm.
people you're with, and you're just like, okay, now what? What the hell? What am I supposed to do? That would be a very frightening feeling to me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's also just reflective of the fact that, like, some of the institutions we saw, it was when we started noticing some of the cracks in there. Because I know I myself, I would have been in my very early 20s at the time, and I started really noticing what happened when, with our health insurance system and how different it is from the rest of the world. And therefore, my trust in that institution just started getting shaken. And the post 9/11 atmosphere, where we invaded a country that wasn't even technically involved in the attacks.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about the politics of it and whether Iraq is bad or not, that's aside. We still invaded a country that wasn't even directly involved. So
Right,
it
right.
kind of like put that first plant seed in my head of like, wait, why are we doing this? Oh, wait, are we not doing this for the right reason like we used to? Because my grandfather fought in World War II. So when I was a kid, I grew up with that belief that like, no, when we enter a war, it's because we have to.
Yeah, it's for the right reasons. It's a last resort.
Exactly. And so I think this kind of plays on those themes of like, yeah, let's try the church. Let's try the fort that has the military. Let's try calling 911. And none of those things end up being available for them. So then they have to kind of find their own society and build their own structure, which is what we kind of see unfold as time goes on, and how they all kind of play their part in the narrative. They start basically just figuring out how to make their own structure work with what they have. And it's a last desperate plea, obviously, when they decide to leave because they just don't know what else is going to work.
Yeah, it's like I find that's a very common theme across just all zombie stories, movies. It's just society crumbles, so in a sense, it is deterritorialized, and then the people that are left have to try and rebuild it like a phoenix, like from the ashes, to try and rebuild just some semblance of what they feel works, which is in a sense they are reterritorializing things. But yeah, I would hate to come across, I guess, a very extreme nutty group of people, because their version of what they think works is just like it wouldn't jive with me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm very much in like the Glenn camp with Walking Dead, where I'd be like the supply runner. How do we get things established and set up that way? So
yeah, I'm the person who will probably be cowering behind Rick Grimes. He can protect me, and I'll just be like, oh, yeah, I'd like to think that I would survive, but I have no idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, what do you think that as far as Dawn of the Dead, or really just any zombie movie, like, of course it has zombies in it. Zombies are always just, they're in the foreground, they're just in your face. But to me, I've always felt that zombie movies are never really 100% about the zombies. It taps into things like primal fears about survival and group dynamics. Why do you think such a movie, or any zombie movie, or like a movie like Dawn of the Dead, why do you think it doesn't just 100% focus on the zombies? I mean, they're terrifying creatures in and of themselves, but why isn't 100% of the focus there?
Yeah, well, the way you think about the zombies, they're very singular in their purpose. And so as a result, like, there's only so far you can go with the conflict as a storyteller, for one.
Yeah.
But two, I often find that like stressful situations or areas where you're maybe around people that you don't know, or there's a place of anonymity, often kind of brings out what people really are. You think about just how people behave when they get like stressed out. It often shows you who they are as a human being. And so it kind of shows that some people just have these like very disgusting, selfish drives as their internal, like, what they really want. It doesn't really matter what happens to other people. It doesn't matter who has to get sacrificed for me to get what I want. And as a result, I think that's why it shows that, because also when we don't have the rules of a society and a structure, you get to play more, in the sense with the rules and the structure. I mean, even just for a funny, like, small example, here where I'm at in Colorado, when we get a snowstorm, suddenly some people just make up new traffic rules. And it's moments like that where I'm like, oh, okay, that driver would probably be a problem in the zombie apocalypse kind of situation, because they would just start making up their own rules or do whatever they need to get ahead. But it also just kind of helps do a lot of reflection, because I mean, with Romero's movies, especially with how contemplative they are about like human nature and our society as a whole, it gives us a chance to kind of reflect on our nature and whether we actually have the best intentions for ourselves or not. So, what about you?
Well, I always felt that the zombies in a zombie movie, they're interesting, but if 100% of the focus was on them the entire time, it would be absolutely boring. I think zombies, I've always thought they were a metaphor of how pretty much almost facing our true selves in a way, and just those inner parts of us, like you said, that could be selfish or disgusting. So in a way, yeah, I've always felt zombies are just the way for us to face our true selves, and how we will all eventually end up, if I'm going to get existential, just like about it. Maybe not gross, like a gross, gory zombie, but yeah, just like eventually. Yeah, eventually it's just like poof.
And Guillermo del Toro had a really great, and I'm not gonna be able to quote it directly because I'm coming up with this on the top of my head here, but he talked about why he loves making monsters in his movies, and he talks about how it's like a reflection of us because it also brings out different natures in our behavior. Because like thing is, Frankenstein's monster, he's really not a monster. He was created. He didn't ask to be made. He was, and then like as soon as like the small thing went wrong with the little girl, everybody grabbed their pitchforks and just assumed the worst and said he's going to kill us all. Let's burn him alive.
Yeah.
But that really wasn't his nature. It was a confusing moment for him. And so that's why I think really great monster stories also are a good way to kind of take a mirror and just go like, hey, have a look, kind of thing too. Whether it be zombies or, kaiju or Frankenstein's monster, whatever it might be, it's a cool chance to kind of look at different aspects of it and hone in on it too. Because like with zombies, it kind of like ties into that sort of mob mentality, that mob anger, and just that sort of primal base of just move as one, attack as one, swarm as one. And then you get into the individual nature and choices of humans. And that's what brings up the conflict between Cooper and Ben. So that Night of the Living Dead drives a lot.
So it's essentially who is really the monster here. Like you got these monsters that look ugly and grotesque, but sometimes the worst monsters can be people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And that's Walking Dead to a T. I mean, that one...
Oh,
zombies are very rarely the problem. So.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm thinking about some of the characters in this movie, and for a good portion of it, we see the movie play out a lot through Anna's eyes, Anna's perspective, but I don't really see her. I see her as just like a really like important and vital part of the story, and it was very interesting to see her character arc play out. It's just like she was a badass, but I felt she was a more just kind of quiet kind of badass, like one who took action, but wasn't action like hero like type things, just like guns blazing. It's just like I have to know what your thoughts on Anna as a character and her character arc.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked her character. If anything, I wish she kind of like continued to play more prominence throughout the movie. Because like once that opening act kind of settles down, like she kind of just becomes part of the ensemble. And it becomes more of like the ensemble story. But I really like Anna just because even from the get-go, we talked about change and adaptability. We even see her kind of adapting to this scenario in the hospital before things go wrong. Because the doctor who's like keeping her there past her shift, she's been there since like 6 a.m., I think is what she says. But he says, okay, can you find out where they moved this patient and page me? She then asks the person at the front desk who like locates that patient to page him for her because she knows if she pages him directly, right? He's going to ask for something more and she's going to be stuck there in perpetuity. So she adapts her own willingness of what she's willing to do to change for the scenario. So it's one of those really cool, like subtle character moments that like, I don't know that the average audience member might pick up on, but it's a cool seed to plant in terms of how she's adaptable. And I think my favorite scene with her is also right when they're planning on shooting the dad. I can't remember the dad's name.
Frank.
Yeah, the guy, he was also in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yep.
But so it was Frank. Okay, yeah, when they're talking about killing Frank, because she almost invites, if you know Walking Dead, the Rictatorship. Right? She's almost saying like, "Hey, if he's bitten, you can't, we can't risk anything. So why don't you shoot Tucker?" He's like, "I didn't get bit." He's like, "How do you know for sure? You said you got hurt, like by getting a scrape on your leg. How do we know that it's not a scrape from the zombie? So shoot them both. Go ahead, kill him." So I like that she is very willing to bluff because I think she sees Michael's true nature,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's not that ruthless. And even though it feels like society's falling apart, there should still be some rules. So then they give Frank the honorable thing where they let him live out to make sure, and then they kill him because they were right. Because Anna was right.
Yeah.
But she was still trying to fight some of her baser instincts about that. So I think she just makes for a really cool, intelligent lead. And I also like that she's confident but also vulnerable because she does have that breakdown after everything's done and she's like changing her shoes and just breaks down for a while, but she has a moment to herself finally because I think all the adrenaline's coming down and she's realizing, oh my God, I literally had my husband come after me and try to kill me. And then I crashed my car. I saw things blow up. I got a shotgun put in my face, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like an unrelenting, like however long that was in real time, like 3 hours. In movie time, it was like 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
I think it was just good to give her some layers in the sense of that she had a lot to her, even just from the first scene that we meet her. What about you? What's your take on her?
I really liked just how I just like how grounded that she was, and she had just like in spite of just all the crap going around her, like yeah, she had those moments where she broke down whenever she had those few moments, but she seemed to have a very level head. I like how she approached certain situations, like what you mentioned, just like calling Michael's bluff. That is a scene that I absolutely love. And another scene that I love with her, I mean, it kind of just shows her character and how she's willing to also take a moment outside of things. It's when the guys are on the roof and they're having Andy across the way. They're giving him like zombies like that look like celebrities
Yep.
to shoot, to test his shooting skills. And then she's just like, yeah, you guys have really rough childhoods. Like, maybe did you? Like maybe a little bit rocky. And that's when Steve's just like, hey, if I ever turn to one of these things, you have my permission to blow my head off. And she's like, oh, you can count on it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and she also has that like very blunt ability to advocate for herself too, because like when they're having that like standoff on the roof, when they're deciding whether to let that van in,
yeah, get the gun out of my face.
Yeah, she just says repeatedly, like I said, get the gun out of my face, kind of thing. So she's not afraid to like deal with those stressful situations. And I think that's also very well informed with her background being a nurse, and working in the medical field. I'm sure she's dealt with some stressful situations. So for her, it's easier for her to adapt, I think, than other people. Whereas like CJ and the security guards, they're hitting the panic button and just like, lock it up. Nobody's getting in. Nobody's getting out. This is it, kind of thing. She's willing to be like, no, we have to save them because there's probably a lot of people in that truck that need our help.
I could definitely, that scene in particular, I totally get both sides. I get Anna's side being like, let's. Also, another thing I liked about her is just like, we have to remember not to lose our humanity. Mm-hmm. Just like in a way, this is a really crappy situation, but let's not lose our humanity. We have to help these people. And CJ is like, well, we're not infected. How are we supposed to know that they're not infected? We're safe. I don't want to start letting the wrong people in. And I think, one of them ended up actually did being infected. Like one of the women.
Yeah, the older and Frank. Yeah, so they brought in two because they brought in that woman in the wheelbarrow. Yeah, and then Frank was also bitten. So it's that's what one thing that I appreciate about the character development too is that like you don't like CJ initially, but you also get it. You're not like watching his perspective like where's he coming from? This is out of left field. It's like no, I can see why that perspective is a viable one. Based on the scenario, and that's what makes for interesting characters. Is that even if they're on the antagonistic side of things, you still understand where they're coming from, and that's why CJ's arc is so cool because he does go from being protective of his own little trio of security guards, but then everyone else kind of becomes a part of his group, and that's why he ends up doing the sacrifice play. But near the end, is because it comes full circle. He's very protective of those that are in his circle. So.
I could wax poetic just about CJ's arc. I absolutely love it. I think he definitely needed that time to cool off. I think being put in that cell was important, a very important part of his character arc. And then when they were going down to turn on that generator, they didn't even give him a gun at first because they still didn't trust him. And then when it was in the thick of things, I think it was I don't remember if it was Michael or Kenneth that tossed him the gun, but they were like, hey, CJ. And so they tossed him a gun. So that right there, to me, was the turning point that shows, okay, this is a crappy situation, but in this instance, we have to trust him, or we are willing to trust him. And then from there, like you said, he fully just kind of integrated into that group.
Yep, and it's funny because I just thought of the way that they framed the camera during that scene in the basement with like the metal chain link fence and how they were defending themselves to try to get that. And when they do the gas and everything, Michael relies on him to do. I think he says CJ matches, and I remember that was weird because then he pulls out a lighter. I remember that threw me off just like quick little moment. And I'm like,
it's like, I don't have matches, I have a lighter.
But anyway, but as like the flames go up and you see the zombies on fire, and that's also cool because they did that very practically. You see a couple like zombies up against the fence, you're like, no, that's a person, like a stunt performer being lit up, and that's one thing I appreciate about this movie too, is it's practical. But then when we cut back, you actually see Michael, CJ, and Kenneth standing in a single line in the frame.
Yeah.
And that's showing all the glitter of the fires going. So it sort of symbolizes that transition where CJ is no longer separated from the group. And that's that big transitionary moment where it's like, okay, when push came to shove, we all relied on each other and we are okay. Most of us.
Yeah, most of us are okay. That one guy was not okay.
Yeah, Brett, I don't know.
Yes, Brett. His name starts with a B.
The third security guard who doesn't make it. Yeah, but
security guard number 3.
Yeah, but like once those three really rallied together and used their resources, where Ving Rhames was keeping the shotgun to hold them back, and then they got the gas sprayed out, and then CJ lit it. All three of them played a key part together, and the way that they framed that shot of them all standing in the same distance. And in unison kind of was a really cool visual way to show the unification of the group in that moment and how that was transitionary for CJ's arc.
I always thought that was a really, really cool shot. Yeah.
They did a really fun online game on the website too, where you actually had to defend that cage for a while. So you had like a shotgun. You just had to defend it while others were there. You're just like a random like person.
Oh.
I don't know if it's still around. Probably not, because it was developed back in 2004. So technology of the internet probably can't support it anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
I remember in the dorms, me and my improv friends, we played the game to see who could last the longest. So
Yeah, and you mentioned the special effects, and whenever I was doing research into a little bit of the backstory behind this film, they said, and we use CGI, and I was like, wait, what, you use CGI? I never even knew that they used CGI in some points until I looked it up, which to me is a testament to the CGI itself. I mean, there was a lot that was done with real stunts, like you mentioned, the stunt people that were set on fire, and definitely the makeup, but like the massive zombie crowd scenes, they used, there was like I think a mix of some practical, but mainly digital, like CGI effects.
Yep.
So how do you feel just pretty much about the mix of practical and CGI, like in this movie? Did you, like me, even know that they used CGI in this?
There's a couple shots that I could see the CGI, but I think they had to pick and choose their moments. And the fact that they tried to do everything as practically as they could was really huge. And one sequence I can think about in particular is when they're trying to escape in the vans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it is a good combination of practical and CGI. Because when they give CJ that propane tank with the flare, right? He's really got that. He's really tossing it. Then you cut to the zombie who picks it up, looking at it like, what is this? And then he gets shot with the shotgun, right? The CG comes when they have the massive explosion. You see all the hundreds of zombies going almost in a ripple effect with their falling.
Yeah.
Zero way you can do that practically, because you'd have to have,
Yeah.
You would risk hurting people, or you'd have to buy so many mannequins that, it would blow out the budget. So you can kind of see a little bit of the CG there, but because it's such a spectacle and like an intense moment, and it's also informed by practical effects, it works for me. The same thing with some of the blood and stuff, because like there's the one guy who gets like, is it a cricket paddle or something in the sports store? Gets it up to the head. I mean, it looks so brutally realistic in terms of that moment. Oh, it's not cricket. It's doesn't matter.
Like it's I think he picked up a mallet and then the
Yeah,
mallet broke and he used the mallet stick to
yeah,
jive it up like through his head.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so for me, I think the effects still hold up.
Yeah.
The baby, when it screams, I could see a little of the CGI there. But again, they still built like the practical thing to be held and just enhanced the face basically for that moment. So for me, the effects worked really well because I think that's when a movie has really good effects is when they use whatever suits the moment best and not just because it's cheap, right? I think we've all
Right.
seen the movies where it's just like, oh, okay, they just did that because they had no other choice. They ran out of budget or something. Um, so I think whenever they use the best effect available for the moment, and they lean on practical as much as possible, that's always great. So, what about you?
I guess because like I don't visually look for CGI. I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, this is CGI" or "Oh, that's CGI." Like I honestly didn't even notice because
Yeah.
it didn't take me out of the film.
Mhm.
Now, whenever CGI is used in such a way that is so poor that it's definitely 100% noticeable and the brain like it takes you out of it. You're just like,
Mhm.
this is CGI. This is so fake, and this is so dumb. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck is going on here? I
Yeah.
think what was it? Rob Bottin, who like master special effects, like wizard, who did also the special effects and visual effects for The Thing, like a good portion of them. He didn't allow people to take any behind the scenes like photos of the
Mhm.
special effects because a magician in a sense doesn't give away their secrets, and
Okay.
that's what a good I think effect does. Like, yeah, somewhere in the back of your mind you're like, okay, like I know like this is fake because I'm watching a movie, but dang, this looks so realistic.
Mhm.
Like the broken mallet being jabbed up
Yeah.
through the guy's like face, like the zombie gore also looked very realistic.
Mhm.
Oh my god, ew. So
Yeah. Well,
that to me, I feel like the special effects and the visual effects, like in this movie, whether it was practical, whether it was a CGI, I feel that they serve their purpose to help tell the story. And this movie could have been made today, I feel,
mhm.
and still hold up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also noticed this latest screening a couple like really small details that I appreciated like the hell out of, and it was primarily when they were finally getting out of the big crowd. You know, after everything kind of went to hell,
Mm-hmm.
um, because when they first pulled the truck up, or when they first like were coming through the sewer to go in to get Nicole and the dog chips and get the guns and everything. Um, there was this establishing shot that showed the truck that Nicole drove over, as well as Andy's gun shop, and then you saw the zombie feet moving around. And then when they were leaving, on either the truck itself or the building, you could see chars from the explosion that weren't there before from when he threw the propane tank. So it's one of those really cool little details on the production design where I'm like, somebody actually thought to take the set and while they still had the same master shot, they may have shot it separately at times or anything, but the same angle with different perspectives. And the first one was when they were entering the gun store to try to like save Nicole and Chips, and before the explosion, and things were a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
But then as they were driving the truck away, the truck passes by the camera, and then you see it all burned up with the char, while still understanding that it was the same angle that they had previously. It's a really cool way to transition us out for multiple reasons. One, just to kind of like actually give us that sense of realism in the passage of the explosion, but then it also transition us out in the sense of like that's the last familiar thing you're going to see. Now
Yeah.
they're out on the street in unfamiliar territory, so we kind of got that last little remnant of what we know. That was like one of those quick moments where I'm like, yeah, someone on the production team or something like had that idea, or maybe even the director, Zack Snyder, I'm not sure who, but it was just such a good idea to have that transition piece happen in such a way that, again, like a regular audience member may just see it and just be like, all right, cool, moving on, But it kind of signals to them even on a subconscious level of what the
Yeah.
filmmaker's trying to tell you. So
Yeah. Now I've noticed that detail, but I never put much thought into it. And now that you've mentioned it, the next time that I watch it, I will have that just in the back of my mind saying, okay. Okay.
yeah, it's because like that's one thing I try to focus in on as a filmmaker is like how to make sure that like each frame is used either for like a narrative purpose or setting tone or atmosphere, has to have a reason to be there. Otherwise, why spend the money and the time?
Right.
Because you're either like shooting something with no time and because you're burning through cash, or you have no cash, so you're just asking people to do things on goodwill. If you're in the low budget indie side,
Yeah.
and therefore you don't want to like waste people's time and things. So that's one thing I always try to look for on films when I'm watching is what is the filmmaker trying to get across when they're putting these moments together, even like little production design tricks like that. So.
Yeah. Oh boy. So if this film, so say it didn't come out in 2004, we're jumping ahead to 2025, and
Mhm.
they're like, okay, we're putting out this remake of Dawn of the Dead. People have certain thoughts
Yeah.
sometimes about remakes, especially of just very beloved films. Do you think that if this came out today, just I guess speculate, do you think that it would be embraced? Or do you think people would be like, oh my God, another remake?
I think there would be. I mean, there's always a segment of the audience that's going to say that no matter what. Like from when it's announced to when it's released, they're going to say this is the worst thing ever. Stop doing remakes. Um, but the truth of the matter is that like last 5 years, the like 8 to 10 of the top 10 box office of the year has been a remake, a sequel, or franchise piece. So the money doesn't equal what people are saying about we need more original films because people don't show up for original films unless something like Sinners, where it's like
Yeah.
lightning in a bottle. Otherwise, original films don't get as viewed as much, and the box office reflects that. But that's a whole other conversation. So I think there would be a segment of the audience that cries like blasphemy from the get go. I think it would just depend on how it looks, because I am both excited but nervous for the "I Know What You Did Last Summer" remake.
Oh.
Because if you're watching this, we're like a week away from that coming out,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of excited because we've only ever seen two theatrical release movies of the franchise, and there's a really really bad direct to DVD one as well. But this feels like they're trying to relaunch it kind of like they did with the Scream franchise a few years ago. So I'm excited because I like the Scream relaunch. But at the same time, they're doing a few things in the trailers that are scaring me, where they have like Jennifer Love Hewitt kind of repeat her "What are you waiting for?" line.
Yeah.
But instead of it having that like deep passion of like "What are you waiting for?" She's screaming and twirling and the camera's moving. It's just static. She goes, "What are you waiting for?" And I'm like, did we just throw that in because we thought it'd be neat? We were like, remember that, guys? Nostalgia grab. So that's a very long-winded way of me getting around to like I think it would depend on who's executing it and for what purpose. I think if they continued to do something about American consumerism or something like that, like we talked earlier about how like now it almost be hard to set it in a mall. Let's put it in an Amazon warehouse. Maybe
Yeah.
that could be it, kind of thing. Like plus that would be kind of funny seeing a delivery truck driver coming up and just zombifying people at delivery or something. Zombie with the Ring doorbell smartphone. I think if it had something to say about modern consumerism, I think it'd have its place. I'd be open to it. I'm also a little bit more open to things. I'm always kind of I like to give a benefit of the doubt. So I will be cautiously optimistic unless they start proving me wrong and say like, oh no, okay, you burned me.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. With
So.
me, like I think that we need all types of movies. We need originals. We need
Yep.
sequels. We need remakes. We need movies that are parts of franchises. So I think I would just approached it like probably the same way I approached it just like way back in the day. Like I didn't see I didn't see the original. I really had no attachment to the original at the time, so I was able to approach this from a fresh perspective, much like the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, that was the first Texas Chainsaw I ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any attachment to the original, so I was more open to it. I think probably if I have an attachment to the original, then that's where I'm a little skeptical. Like
Yeah.
with the American Psycho remake that's going to be made. I'm so skeptical. I'm
Yeah,
so skeptical like about it.
and that's one of those things too where I feel like they're going to have to kind of go a different direction, because if they try to just collect the same manic energy from the first, it's not going to work. Like that was kind of it was a movie that's bottled by its time, because it does have those like 90s suits, the slick back hair, the business cards. It's my dad, he worked in high tech in the 80s and 90s. And so like he wasn't in the finance district like the Bateman character, but I still was able to kind of witness enough about that like high tech corporate lifestyle where, the size of your office, the quality of your business card, which business trips and what suits you have is as much of a symbol as like what you're actually getting made for your salary or what impact you might have on the world. So I think both with American Psycho and if they did a new, a 2026 Dawn of the Dead, I think if they found a way to like update it and bring it for our audience today and do it in a cool way, I'm game. If they're just doing it for a cash grab to like, because the rights are up, or they don't know what else to do, then no, please don't, kind of thing.
Or basically, in a sense, to cash in on nostalgia.
Exactly.
Sake.
Yeah, where they just say, oh, it's been about 30 years, so now those kids are adults, so let's remake that. Why? Demographics. So, not because they have anything to say.
Yeah. So yeah, there's our discussion and rants on remakes and other like things related to remakes. So now we're going to move into the portion where I'm a very big what if person. So I'd like to think about just what if this scenario had been changed, or how would this go down, and other various versions of what ifs. So here's the what if that I'm going to have you noodle on.
Okay.
So what if they had decided to stay put in the mall? So they were discussing things. They were just like, no, the outside world is scary. We have no idea like what's going on out there. Let's stay here where we're still relatively safe. Do you think that they could have made it long term? Or do you think that them staying behind would have just been a death sentence?
Ooh. That's so hard to say, because like that movie stands alone, like in the sense it doesn't have an expanded universe or sequels, right? Because Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, you see the progression, right? Whereas like with this, it stands on its own, so you don't really know where life ended up in this scenario. We don't know what it looks like the next week or the next month, because there is like a version where they stay put and then suddenly help does finally show up after like a week or a couple more weeks or something like that. That's one possibility. Other possibility, they start running out of food, start panicking, and then repeat the same plot and try to escape. But then it's even worse because they're all like, famished and worn down even more so they get like more irrational and they die quicker, so oh man, it's hard to say, because it's almost like, was help on the way? Did they just miss it, like The Mist, where the army was like 10 minutes from reaching them? Who knows? So I don't know if I have a good answer for you, if I'm being honest, because I just don't know about the expanded universe and like how far the zombie outbreak was spread. What do you think? I mean, do you have because that's a very good question. You obviously wouldn't pose it if you didn't have at least a theory.
It's wow. It's like you're it's so funny. You were thinking just like so far. It's like, this is like, I don't know the expanded universe or the implications of just like everything. But when it comes to me, I think that if they stayed behind, that it would have been a death sentence. I don't think that they could have made it long term, because a mall, it kind of reminds me of like, say, if I held up in a place like a Walmart Supercenter with people. There's
Mhm.
too many places to defend. There's
Yeah.
too many places like that where weaknesses, structural weaknesses, because buildings over time, just depending on how long you're in there, they crumble. They fall
Mhm.
in states of disrepair. So um, eventually they're gonna get in. You're
Yep.
not really safe in one particular spot anywhere for forever. So
Mhm.
I feel that yeah, they would not have made it long term at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like where my point was. Like, if help was kind of coming, then yeah, they probably would have made it out. Like, if they stayed just a couple more weeks and the army was able to get like a retaliatory force, so they were able to start taking it out. But but that's what I don't know. So yeah, I think long term, also because they had no means of like growing food or
Right.
apart from Andy's gun shop resupplying weapons or anything like that. And like you said, it's a lot of points of defense, and a lot of people would wonder about the resources too. So they might have the equivalent of the biker gang from the '78 version come and try to take over and raid
Yeah.
the darn mall after a while. For all I know, yeah. So long term, I'm with you. If it was a very very long term stay, no way. They just either keep getting picked off slowly and slowly, or there'd be a mass break in somewhere else or some other way. So
Yeah. No. Now we're to the portion that I like to call the retro lightning round. So I have a few questions
okay.
about Dawn of the Dead or related to like this version of Dawn of the Dead.
Mhm.
Uh, you could say the first thing that pops in your head, and you can expand on your answer as much as you want.
All right.
Okay, so first question. Do you think that you would survive Dawn of the Dead 2004, or do you think that you would be zombie food in the first 10 minutes of the film?
I would probably be one of the guys who's somewhere in between. I'd probably make it through the first onslaught, but then I'd probably like I relate a lot to Michael's character personally, just because I am a dad and I'm very good at being a dad. So
Oh.
I would probably be one of the guys who does a sacrifice play at some point or tries to help to my own detriment, and that I would probably like end up dying trying to help others. So I almost in between, I would say. So
Very fair diplomatic answer.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, who do you feel is the most underrated character in this film?
Oof. Okay. So I mean, CJ is kind of my favorite character just because of his arc, right? And then I've got a soft spot for Anna, just because she's just such a like rock hard like anchor for the film, right? Because like you said, she's got like level emotions, and I obviously personally relate to Michael. There's a part of me that wants to say Tucker because he has one of my favorite underrated scenes, and it's when CJ's dragging him after he falls and like breaks his
Yes.
legs. That
Yes.
CJ's pulling and dragging him, and he's got the double pistol still shooting. It's just such a cool moment where like I think Tucker in that moment knows that he's not going to make it, but he's at least trying to give him as much time as possible. Because then once they do catch up and start pulling him away from CJ, then CJ's just shooting and getting it over with. Because he doesn't have like a massive arc, but he's just kind of there for the team, and he has some cool like fun, endearing moments. So I'll go Tucker. I also want to say Steve though, because I love Steve from like a I love to hate him kind of perspective,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Um, my friend, a couple of my friends that saw the movie with me, for a little while we would do the like, oh, is that sarcasm? That's awesome.
That's a great line.
He still kills me with that line because you're basically just seeing Phil Dunphy if he was a really self-involved a-hole kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, Steve had some funny lines. It's like, I have an idea. We'll draw straws and the loser run across the lot with a ham sandwich.
Yeah, he had some of the best lines, and his performance is great too because he's so charismatic as an actor that you actually still enjoy him. That's why you love to hate him. Is that he
Yes.
has that charisma and that perfect comedic delivery that makes him just likable enough that you enjoy him sticking around, even though he's really a turd. So
Yeah.
and then when he does finally get his comeuppance, it's like that was earned, and I'm glad that Anna was the one to shoot him. So
Yes.
she got to fulfill the promise of like, yes, I will.
Yes,
No
it
problem.
all came full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who do you feel is the better mall squad? Romero's mall squad or Zack Snyder's mall squad?
Oh, for me, it almost depends on context because, like, for actual survival, I feel like Romero's crew might be a little bit stronger because it's a smaller group. You got the two military guys a little more level-headed, but you got more people with the Snyder crew and a lot more entertainment going around. so, so for that purpose, I'll say Snyder's crew.
Okay.
But it's one of those like I need. Under what context are we talking?
I don't offer any context. You
Exactly. So I'll go Snyder's crew. So for
So,
entertainment and size of the group purpose. So be easier to handle things.
yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. What is your favorite zombie kill in this movie? Whether it was a zombie killing a person or somebody killing a zombie.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick aside. Non-zombie kill is when Anna's character falls against the bathtub.
Yeah.
When she falls back, that looks like it hurt the stunt woman who did it. Like, I remember in the theater, everybody was like, oh! Because I think we've all, like, banged our head on something, at some point. But so that's, like, my favorite non-kill moment. Kill-wise, I have to say it's, I think she's credited as Bloated Woman. But the lady in the wheelbarrow, when she dies and gets up, it's just because the makeup and the performance and the sound of her, like, wheezing is so unsettling. And so then when she gets up and just starts storming, it kind of signals to the group that, like, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have let her in. And also just proves Anna's point, right? And it kind of signals a lot for the group in the story. But just, like, the raw emotion of you're just feeling, like, grossed out and unsettled throughout it all, just seeing, like, how she's just got, like, the messed up eye and you can start to see the veins, like, discoloring underneath her skin and stuff. It's just so unnerving in a very entertaining zombie way. Most people will be like, and you find that fun? Kind of thing. So,
like, yes, we find horror movies fun.
Exactly. But I also won't sit here and go, like, shocking you don't like that kind of stuff. I'll never I let everyone enjoy what they want to enjoy. So
exactly. And last of the retro lightning round questions: if you had to double feature this version of Dawn of the Dead with another zombie movie, what would you pair it with?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious pick is a Double Dawn, right? You do the 78 and then the 04, but
Double Dawn.
Double Dawn. Instead, I'm going to go for a Dawn and Shaun because Dawn of the Dead, the remake, and Shaun of the Dead both came out in 2004. And I feel like they both kind of changed how zombie movies are done. Because if you think about Shaun of the Dead, that kind of, like, brought on the comedy, like, side of zombie things. So you started seeing, like, Life After Beth, Warm Bodies, Zombieland, and then the Apocalypse. It kind of also was very informed by George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. So you could almost kind of, like, now I almost want a triple feature where you watch the original Dawn of the Dead, then the remake, and then Shaun, because then it's almost like this, like, you could see the progression and how they, like, played with the genre a little bit, because you could see how they altered Dawn of the Dead for the remake for the new audience, and how Shaun of the Dead was not necessarily even a spoof, but they made fun of some things about zombie tropes, but it was just the wrong people in the situation more than anything else. And it was utilizing zombies in a really cool, refreshing way that we hadn't seen. I can't think of another time I saw a romantic comedy that just had zombies. So I think that year kind of opened the floodgates for playing with the genre in inventive ways that led to the zombie explosion we saw not long after with Walking Dead and that whole stint. So, what would yours be?
Good question. I'm probably thinking Train to Busan. Because it's another kind of fast-paced zombie movie, so then you got, like, the same kind of tone going across both movies. You have Dawn of the Dead, which is very fast-paced, like the remake, and then you've got this one, which is also very, very fast-paced and isolated and very interesting setting. They're on a train, and I just, like, tonally, I'm more of let's keep the same tone, like, going across my double feature here. Yeah. So I would choose Train to Busan.
Yeah, and that movie wrecks me because, I mean, I'm a father of 4 and 3 of them are daughters, so, like, that movie just stabs me in the heart and rips me out. But that's a great combo too, especially just because they share the claustrophobic environment. You've got everyone stuck in the mall, everyone's stuck on the train, so you have that commonality with it too. So I would go to either of those double features, honestly.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I would go Dawn. I would go double Dawn and then Sean and then this one. Yeah, but yeah, we got
Yeah.
some great picks going on here.
Yeah.
All right. So as they say, all good things must come to an end. Otherwise, we'd be talking about zombies and zombie movies for forever. So once again, Thomas, thank you so much for coming on and talking about zombies and the Dawn of the Dead remake with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was such a fun conversation, and like I said, yeah, like you said, this could keep going.
Yes.
There's a couple things I had in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, I didn't even touch base on that, and I'm like, well, we got to wrap it up at some point. So
yeah, it's like time out.
Yeah, exactly. But those are my favorite types of, like, when I do panels at like film festivals or conventions and stuff. Those are my favorite, when it feels like we could just keep going, but at the same time,
we have to unwillingly put the kibosh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So before I let you go, talk a little bit about just any upcoming projects that you want people to keep an eye out for, and where they can find you out in the big zombie wasteland that is called the internet.
Yeah, for sure. So Slasher Sessions is the short film that I mentioned that we're trying to get made into a feature. Our tagline is "Emotions can be killer," and just imagine if all the slashers had to sit down for group therapy. If you go to slashersessions.com, you can see our website. You can watch a trailer for it. We even made some fake trailers for their movies. So like all the slashers, they're original slashers, because obviously I wasn't going to put Freddy, Michael, copyright nightmare. I was begging for a lawsuit. So I came up with original slashers. So we made like fake commercials for like Blockbuster video releases, the DVD release of like all the slashers. So you can see all those like bonus materials behind the scenes, learn about how we made the movie. And then hopefully you'll be able to see the feature at some point, as we're got partial financing. So slashersessions.com is a good one. And also thomasafowler.com. It's going to give you everything that I do, including my books, my films, and things like that. And then a media project is coming out just a couple months here is going to be, I just directed music videos for a band called the Pink Ranger. I'm doing their videos for the entire album. So it's a mix of like lyric videos and videos that we shot. But first one's coming out in August. And then we've got another single in September, and then the full album is going to be October. And it was just a blast because we just got to be creative and work around. So I'll also be a voice actor in The Haunted House of Pancakes, which is a feature film that was crowdfunded. I'm just additional voices. So I'm one of the voices in the diner of the waiters and the patrons, both before the House of Pancakes gets haunted and after. So I've got some calm lines. I've got some panicked lines. I don't even know what they used. I just sent them a whole slew. So those are some things they can look forward to. So Slasher Sessions, Pink Ranger music videos, Haunted House of Pancakes, and hopefully some feature films very soon. So.
All right. And I will make sure to have the links to, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, right now I'm on a little bit of a social break just because I'm working very hard on getting the feature film made and stuff. But thomasafowler.com is my website that has a link to all my socials, so you can find the YouTube channels where we have all the Slasher Sessions videos and things. My most active is Instagram when I'm not on break. I'll be back in September. So that's at Thomas A. Fowler. And then, I think that's the primary place you want to find me. But if you just go to the website, that's kind of my central hub for everything, including a newsletter that's coming back soon in September as well, where I'm going to be doing like monthly communications about where things are and where people can find the new stuff. So.
Okay. And I will make sure to have the links to where people can find you and your projects or anything that's upcoming in the description below. So everybody, thank you for watching this episode of Retro Horror School Talks. Like, share, do all the things. Subscribe if you want to keep having fun learning about horror, and keep listening to fun conversations like these. Class is dismissed, and remember, if you hear fast zombies behind you, don't look back, just run.